Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you so much. Good evening. Are we so excited to have great young conservatives like Megan Brophy? Megan, congratulations and thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you. I want to thank you for your commitment to the conservative cause. I want to say just briefly about me because I have the privilege of introducing Dennis Prager. But John said, tell a little bit about the campaign, and so I will. Folks, I'm running for the United States Senate for one simple reason. Our federal government is out of control. It has gotten too big, too powerful, too intrusive. And after all this hope and change, you deserve to know how the candidates stand on the issues. So let me tell you, I am pro-life. Pro-marriage. Pro-business. Pro-entrepreneur. Pro-Second Amendment. And pro-10th Amendment. Heck, I'm for all of the Constitution, and it's time that we get back to believing in the Constitution. I believe in our individuals can achieve rather than government must provide, and that is the definition of what I believe the conservative cause is all about. Individuals achieving rather than government must provide. I also believe in equality of opportunity, not equality of result. And let me tell you what my agenda would be. First and foremost, we need to repeal Obamacare. We need to cut discretionary spending and balance the budget without raising taxes. I say no to earmarks, no to bailouts, no to cap and trade. We need to drill in Anwar. We need to drill on the Rhone Plateau. We need to secure the borders. No amnesty. We need to stand with Israel. We need to stop Iran's nuclear capabilities. We need to not only prosecute the war on terror, we need to win the war on terror. Folks, that's enough about me. Isn't it exciting to be in this room? Don't you just feel the energy? It is remarkable, I think. It feels good, doesn't it? Yes, it does feel good to be in a room of conservatives. But I don't have to tell each and every one of you that it's been tough on conservatives these last few elections. Our country, and tragically our very own political party, has temporarily turned its back on the values that have been the heart and soul of the conservative movement. Limited government, federalism, fiscal tight-fistedness, a belief in the power of the person over the whims of the state, a belief in an economic model called free enterprise, and with it free choice and free commerce, and the unflinching knowledge that free people in the crucible of competition are better equipped to allocate resources in a society than the best-intentioned bureaucrat operating even on the very best day. All of these ideas, these values, form the backbone of the conservative movement and of our great republic. And sadly, these values have been in retreat, and I believe our republic is in jeopardy. But no more. No more. No more, my friends, no more. Conservatives, we are on the ascent, on the verge of a great comeback, and with it, a comeback for our Republican Party, and most important of all, a comeback for the United States of America. Now is not the time to despair. There is reason to hope and reason to believe. Fellow Americans, help is on the way. Now, the great thing about being a conservative, and I don't know how else to put this, it's not very polite, is the fact that we're right, and the other guys aren't. For proof, just think about the headlines this past week in the newspapers. The big news was that LeBron James decided not to return to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Did you hear one of the reasons why LeBron chose the Miami Heat rather than the New York Knicks? You guessed it, income taxes. New York's got a big one, and Florida doesn't. And numerous reports said that LeBron was acutely aware of the huge impact of New York's hyper-aggressive tax environment on his own personal bottom line. Of course, conservatives, we all knew that all along, what LeBron is just discovering. So LeBron James has taught the people of America an economic lesson that Barack Obama, Harry Reid, and right here in Colorado, Michael Bennett just don't understand. Big government does not invite prosperity. Our founding fathers knew it. Abraham Lincoln knew it. So did Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan. And my fellow conservatives, if we press the case for the old-time values of freedom and free enterprise with courage and with conviction, and practice these values with consistency, I believe the American people will remember that lesson too. And they will grant us the right to govern once again, to lead this country once more. And that, my friends, is a great segue into our next speaker, because these are values that Dennis Prager preaches with passion and persuasion every single day. And I'm so looking forward to hearing his remark this evening, as I know you are. Dennis Prager has proudly broadcast conservative thought and values for almost 30 years. In addition to his nationally syndicated radio show and 4 books, Mr. Prager has appeared on Larry King Live, Hannity and Combs, CBS Evening News, The Today Show, and many others. And for 10 years, he has conducted a weekly interfaith radio dialogue with representatives of virtually every religion of the world. And since 1992, he's been teaching the Bible verse by verse at the University of Judaism. Tireless, eloquent, honest. Mr. Prager has proudly defended the American idea, that special quality that distinguishes America from other great civilizations, past and present. That idea is uniquely rooted in the Judeo-Christian tradition that Dennis calls the Trinity, e pluribus unum, in God we trust, and liberty. All ideas that our founding fathers held close and enshrined in our United States Constitution. I think Dennis Prager is right, and I bet you do too. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Americans, fellow conservatives, please join me in giving a Rocky Mountain welcome to a true friend to the United States and the conservative cause, Dennis Prager.
I'll say a formal thank you to Jane Norton in just a moment, but you have no idea how hard it is to speak after a standing ovation. No, you really don't. I do better when I'm booed. You know, you can only go up. You are good. That's never happened before. That was fast. This is being video correct. You know what's going to happen? I see it already. It's tomorrow on YouTube. Prager booed by 600 conservatives. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's real. By the way, it goes to show you that what the eyes see and the ears hear isn't always truth. Isn't that interesting? Because that would be true. Prager was booed by 600 conservatives. It's an eerie moment. I'm never using that line again. I assure you, I learned my lesson. Let me just say a word about Jane Norton's introduction. Actually, two words. One very serious and one humorous. The serious is, I looked to, in fact, I should introduce him, and I will in a moment, but I looked to my producer, Alan Estrin, who's here with me, and he saw the smile and joy on my face, and he had it too. And Alan smiles about once every 3 months, so this was a great moment. And the reason was to have a woman, any woman or a man, of such distinction, cite my American Trinity. I feel, oh my God, it's working. So to infinitely better than having yourself praised is to have an idea that you believe in deeply repeated. And to have Jane Norton repeat an idea I believe in, the trip was worth it already. I just want to say that. Senator Armstrong, I have a big thank you to you, and you know what it is, and I'm going to come to that in a moment. There are so many distinguished people here that I'm afraid to begin. I really am, because I know I would leave somebody out, but I am honored by the presence of the others who have spoken, among others, and by the Colorado celebrities in the best sense of the word celebrity who were here. John Andrews, God bless you. God bless this university that has helped make this evening possible. It is, by the way, you will think this is light. And yes, it's light, but it's part of my idiosyncratic personality to say that of the many, many gifts that are left for speakers in their hotel room, the pen that Colorado Christian University left for me is the finest ever given by any place I have ever spoken. And that means something, because I am a very serious pen collector. I just want to say that. So this is not meant. Now, having said that, it's really to butter you up. I lost it. And I won't say anything, no, I just mentioning it in passing, but I have no, what is it? I don't know what it is. I certainly have a lot of chutzpah. Yes, that's what I have. Anyway, and of course, Brian Taylor of KNUS, listen, let's be honest. If I were not on KNUS, I would be known by about 1/12 of you, and I know that, and I bless you for having me on and for the great station that you run here in Clinton. Now let me tell you, by the way, John told me that what he wants is that I speak a half hour and then take questions. There's a problem here, and that is that I studied speaking under Fidel Castro. So I won't take as long as he or his protege in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, who takes 3 hours, but not only speaks for 3 hours. If you heard my show, you will know this. We've actually played excerpts. He sings during his show, during his speech. So, but I won't do that, I promise. But I do want to tell you one thing. So I might be a little longer than 30 minutes, but if I see 2 yawns, I will know it is time to close up shop. I do want to tell you, though, of a time I was introduced in Colorado, not exactly Denver, but at Colorado University. I've been here, Colorado's like a second home for me, it truly is. And I feel very loved here, and I love it here, and anyway, thanks for having me. But many years ago, I spoke, well, not many, about 8 years ago, I spoke at Colorado University. And, yes. And, no, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But anyway, a young woman got up and she announced it was the first time, she was a student there, and it was the first time that she was ever speaking publicly, which became apparent very quickly. This is the introduction I got, and I have told the story all over America, as the worst introduction I ever received. It was by a student at Colorado University. But this is what it was, and I could not make this up. In the formal bio that is sent around about me, it includes this line. Dennis Prager is obsessed with getting people preoccupied with good and evil. This is how she read it. Pleased to introduce tonight Mr. Dennis Prager, who is preoccupied with doing evil. What do you say after that? She's wrong? So I got up and I said, how does she know? And that was it. You know, that was just, you just remember those moments. And you know, when I compare that to Jane Norton, it's a very big, it's as big as Colorado, the difference in those introductions. Now, let me just tell you, I was here, what was it, 5 weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was here at Denver University. We had KNUS, well actually KNUS was part of it, but that was your evening, that's right, it was a KNUS evening. We had like 6,000, 5,000 people, whatever. And it was with my dear friend, Hugh Hewitt, who was my colleague in talk radio, also of course on KNUS, and Sarah Palin, who needs no introduction. And we were, the three of us, after we each spoke, we sat down at a table, and we were asked by Senator Armstrong, who called on me immediately. None of us knew what he would ask. And so we had to extemporize, and he looked at me first, I guess because I was seated closest to you, no other good reason, and said, so Dennis, what is the most important, or what is the biggest problem facing America? And somebody shouted out, Barack Obama. And I said, no, it is not Barack Obama. It is that we have failed to communicate to the next generation what it means to be an American. And anyway, I then went on for 10 minutes to explain what I think it does mean to be an American, including, of course, the American Trinity, and which I'll explain now and explain to you what I'm here to talk about. To all of our amazement, I didn't even know it was videoed, and it really was, turned out to be a bootleg video, isn't it? One day I'm realizing, because I get Google alerts on my name to see how often, not how often I am, it's not an ego trip, but how often I'm attacked. I'm more interested, what are they saying? And it's usually, look, for those of you, many of you say, you know, I love you, but I'm sure you hear this all the time. I always say, just Google Dennis Prager and asshole. And then you will see I'm not loved all the time. The laugh, forgive me, but I had to be accurate as to what you should Google, otherwise. All right, ASS, asterisk, 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 okay, if you remember DOS. But in any event, I don't know what the last count was, 10,000, you know, it's a lot. So I'm curious what they're saying on the internet, as anybody in public life would be. But anyway, all of a sudden I start to realize more and more and more places are just putting up this YouTube of Senator Armstrong posing this question, Sarah Palin sitting next to me listening very raptly. I mean, who gets that opportunity to have Sarah Palin listen to you? It was a great night. And anyway, it's now approaching 1,600,000, it's approaching 2 million? Oh, it's, all right, anyway, it's enormous. But this is really the serious part of the lecture. What I want to do is explain, having more time than the 10 minutes I had for a response then, what the answer is, what I meant by my answer, and equally importantly, why is it? Why has it gone, as we say in the internet, viral? Why have these 10 minutes gone viral? The thirst to understand what it is, what we must communicate as Americans to the next generation, and indeed to ourselves, is a thirst. This is an audience where one doesn't have to be embarrassed to quote scripture. And I believe, which of the prophets who said, it's not Jeremiah, I think it was, but I know it's not. Anyway, it is, and I know it in Hebrew, but now I have to translate it for you, because I learned it all in Hebrew. There will come a day when there is not a thirst for water or a hunger for bread, but to hear the word of God. So which prophet is it? Isaiah? Do I hear Amos? Anybody for Ezekiel? Asking an audience of 600, is a very silly question. Forget it. It's one of the prophets. Anyway, there is, if I may secularize it, and only a bit secularize this verse, there is not a thirst for water in America, thank God. There is no hunger for bread in America, thank God. Not to say that there aren't people who don't have issues, and they do, of course, but we reach out to them. There's no one starving in the United States of America. But there is a hunger to know what it is to be an American. That there is, and that's the reason that thing is viral. And it's going to hit 2 million, it may hit 3 million. And remember, that's not views. That's different computers. And the average person shows it to somebody in his house. Most people aren't living alone. So if it's only one other person, we're talking about over 3 million Americans who have seen one 10-minute video on what? There's no sex. There's no raunchiness. It's just me explaining what it is to be an American. By the way, I've always had this thirst. I always knew that we were different. But I could never fully explain it until 15 years ago had you said to me, Dennis, what does it mean to be an American? Oh, I would have gone on very eloquently, I'm sure, and very persuasively and so on about the beauty of being American, this great last best hope on earth. But it just would have been, and yes, it would have been beautiful, it would have been true, but it wouldn't have been persuasive. So what's different? Why isn't it France? Why isn't it Norway? Why isn't it Sweden? Why isn't America any democratic country? Why isn't it Australia, which we love? Australia was mentioned earlier. I adore Australia. I've been there many times. I've even been to Darwin, Australia. And but Australians don't get to Darwin, Australia, you have to understand. There are literally more crocodiles than people there, if I'm not mistaken. But in any event, what makes us different? And isn't it amazing how simple the greatest complex questions become if you understand the answer? Sure enough, emptying my pockets one day at my sink, a coin stared at me and it said, Dennis, here's the answer. And sure enough, on every minted American coin is the answer, what I call the American Trinity. E pluribus unum, in God we trust, and liberty. No country on earth other than the United States of America has those three as its value system. Not France, not Norway, not Sweden, not Germany, not any of the most functioning democracies, free societies on earth. Not Australia, not Britain, our Anglo-Saxon partners, no. Only the United States. And let me say, I use the word Trinity advisedly. And by the way, I have been asked, well, why did you take a religious term, Dennis? Don't you want to be inclusive? Well, of course it's inclusive. America is completely inclusive. And I'm a religious Jew saying that the word Trinity should be used. Just like I'm using a Jewish term for another thing I've advocated, which you in Denver have begun. And that is a July 4th Seder. Do you know how Jews have stayed alive for 3,600 years? I don't want to exaggerate, that's the minimum amount of time. Well, since the Exodus of 3,200 years ago, Jews have had a Seder. And if you can keep your people alive outside of your homeland for 2,000 years with the ritual, damn it, we should do it in the United States of America while we're still living in the United States of America. And what we need to do, and it's been begun in Phoenix and in Denver and in LA. They had a magnificent one. Everybody coming in to this July 4th Seder, as we call it, taken after the Passover Seder idea. So I just want you to understand, I took a term from Christianity for the American Trinity and a term from Judaism for the July 4th Seder, because this is a Judeo-Christian country, which I will come to momentarily. And let me tell you another thing. This I want to tell you because this comes from my heart as much as my mind. If Jews and Christians unite, it is the most formidable force on the face of the planet Earth. And this is the country in which that union will take place, and is taking place, in fact, as tonight is just one example. Prager, the Jew, the author of 2 books on Judaism, and the teacher of Torah in Hebrew, invited by a Christian university. It makes perfect sense. It only strikes the secular as odd. It doesn't strike the religious as odd. Just remember that. So in LA, at the July 4th Seder, they give out, just as one example, they give you, when they come in, they give you a name of a signer. You are that signer. And on this this card that they have printed up is a biography, a short bio of a few paragraphs of that signer. Then they have you sign the declaration with that person's name. And I'm telling you, I choke up. I do. I choke up. I won't choke up the 10th time I tell this, but this is only the first time I've told this. So it still emotionally grabs me. They told me, I'm sad that I'm choking up, but I do it. I love this country that much. Anyway, he's told me everyone had tears as they signed the name of the signer that they were. That's the power of a July 4th Seder. Ritual keeps memory alive. It is the single greatest Jewish lesson to America. Ritual keeps you alive. Just as we have lost the Sabbath in America because we've lost Sabbath ritual, so we have lost a lot because we don't have American ritual. You can't survive on fireworks and hot dogs. That doesn't mean anything. It's fun, but it's meaningless. So too, we have an American Trinity. And it doesn't matter what your faith. It doesn't matter what your faith. In God we trust, e pluribus unum, and liberty. Those are our ideals. That is our distinctive value system. And the point that I want to make, that is apropos of this moment and of November, is that the left does not affirm those same values. Now, let me make something clear. I always make it clear on the radio, and I will always make it clear in person. This is very important. I do not hate members of the left. I do not attack them as individuals. The left is destroying the value system of America, but the bad news is there are a lot of nice people doing it. This is what you must understand and we must understand. If we call them what they call us, we will not win. They will always out-curse us, always. They will always out-ad hominem us. That is not our battle. I wrote my column 2 weeks ago, easily found anywhere on the internet. It's titled, When Good People Do Bad Things. The famous book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, I inverted the title. When Good People Do Bad Things. And I can prove to you that you will believe this no matter what you think of the left. I suspect that every single one of you has people left of you in your extended family. And I find it very hard to believe that all of them are loathsome. The odds are, like in my family, where most of my extended family is to the left of me, I adore them. They're damn nice and damn kind. They don't think straight on social issues, but they're kind and they're good and they're decent. And if you go along and believe that it comes from a bad place, leftism, we will never defeat them. The secret is to understand that bad ideas come from nice people. Then you can defeat them. First of all, it's the only time they'll listen to you. If you think they're bad, why should they listen to you? You think I'm bad, why are we having a dialogue? That's what I tell them when they call us racist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, bigoted, and intolerant. Why talk to me? If I'm one of them, I wouldn't talk to a KKK man, right? They're not worthy of dialogue, and that's how they look at us. They never have dialogues. We have yet to have one New York Times guy, right, come on the show. Why should they? Paul Krugman wouldn't even debate any of the economists we have on. Why bother? We're all bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and bigoted, intolerant, and sexist, and so on, right? Why bother? That's why they have us wrong. That's why they lose all the debates. All the debates. Because they don't know our arguments. Why learn bad people's arguments? Just call them bad. Right? That's why they called the Tea Partiers racist. They have no response to the fact that they're not racist. But it doesn't matter. For the left, that's all you need to do. Call them racist. I wrote a piece, I was very proud of this. They are certain on the left of the Tea Partiers' motives, but they were never certain about Nidal Hassan's motives as he yelled Allahu Akbar and shot fellow American soldiers. Who are we to say? We don't know why. The Attorney General of the U.S., have you heard the phenomenal Texas congressman drill him? And very kindly, sir, would you say that it is even possible after they found, what is it, Shabazz, is that his name? The guy in New York. And would you say that it's even possible, just possible, that radical Islam played any role in what he did? And he said, what? That's what, this is the Attorney General of the United States. And he said, radical Islam. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean, what do I mean? Are you not, and it was about 6 times he asked him. I mean, the man admits it's radical Islam that moves him, but the Attorney General of the United States doesn't acknowledge it. But they do know the motives of the Tea Partiers. They don't know the motives of Islamic terrorists who scream Allahu Akbar while slaughtering Americans, but they do know the motives, well, of course, the nefarious motives of Tea Partiers. This is what we're up against. We are up against, and I called it the entire campaign. There was never a candidate in American presidential history that I was an adult at that time that I understood better than, at the time, Senator Barack Obama. And all you needed to know, but obviously a lot of people got fooled, a lot of independents at any rate, a lot of non-leftists. The left in this country is very small. They're dominant in certain areas, but they're small. All he had to say was one magic word. He's there to transform, indeed he used the word fundamentally transform America. It comes down to a very simple difference. Conservatives wish to improve America. The left wishes to transform America. Which side are you on? The vast majority of Americans do not think America needs to be transformed. They think it needs to be improved. The difference is huge. You want me to tell you how? I won't ask for a show of hands because it might embarrass the husbands, but here's a question. How many women here, don't raise your hands, right? But I'll pose the question. Think that their husband could be improved? By your laughter, we have a better signifier than even the showing of hands, okay? After all, I mean, just in the littlest things, why is the wife always grooming the husband? There's a little thing over here, there's a little over there, because he can be improved. Do you ever see a husband groom a wife? Never in your life. It never happens. Right? It's amazing. It is built into the female that he's not quite perfect. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But while you're laughing at this one, you wouldn't laugh if a wife ever said, I think my husband needs to be fundamentally transformed. Is that fair to say? There is a very big difference between fundamentally transforming a person or a country. The left loves America, fine. the debate is absurd. Who loves America more is unwinnable. It shouldn't be debated. You say you love America, I believe you. But it is an odd thing to love a place that you think should be transformed. You wouldn't love your spouse if you really thought your spouse should be transformed. So it means that the left loves an idea of America, their idea of America. But it's not the Trinity, American Trinity idea of America, vi pluribus unum, in God we trust, and liberty. It's a different idea. As I was saying to my wife just the other day, that there is a very big difference between the left and the right, or liberals and conservatives. Liberals are always imagining how much better America could be, or how much better anything could be. And conservatives often always think how much worse it could be. We have a far more realistic understanding of human evil than the left does. We understand that the barrier between civilization and Auschwitz and civilization and Gulag is a thin one. They don't understand that. They don't understand, in my opinion, almost anything about human nature. That's why they gravitate to the university. Because, I mean it literally. I mean it. The least, my grandmother, who didn't graduate high school, knew more about human beings than the average professor in the liberal arts at any university in this country. The average professor. There were some exceptions. That is a very, very sad statement for a person who prides himself in being, yes, even an intellectual. But why? Because the left has taken over the university, and there is very little wisdom at the university. There is a great deal of knowledge. And so they don't understand that if America is really transformed, it may not be good anymore. That's what I believe. If you transform this country, it won't be as good as it's been. But they don't believe it's been good. I interviewed the late Howard Zinn, the best-selling author of a populist history, or popular history of the United States, which is essentially a protologist's view of America. No, and by the way, the most popularly assigned history of America in many high schools and colleges. And I said to him, I said, Professor Zinn, and you know my motto, those of you who listen to the show, I guess most of you do, because only 6 were seated in the very beginning when you gave me a standing ovation. I count. I just want you to know that. It's just, I'm kidding. It doesn't matter. But be that as it may, I prefer clarity to agreement. That is a motto. So I didn't debate Howard Zinn. I wanted to clear for my audience what he believes. Had there never been a United States of America, I said, Professor Zinn, would the world be better or worse? He said, I'm agnostic. Okay, so it gives you an idea. And he is a hero of the left. How could they not think that? They think that we went into Vietnam for imperialist reasons. They think that we went into anywhere in Asia for imperialist reasons. We went into Iraq for oil. I mean, we're a mass murdering country for companies and for resources and for imperialism. How do you think that's a good country? I'm not debating whether they love it, but so let's debate, do you think it's essentially good? And I just asked this to Peter Beinart, who was considered one of the up-and-coming lights of liberalism. I'm not even sure he would say he's on the left. He would just say, I'm a liberal, I'm not on the left. And I asked him, about America being good, and we had slaves, as if we're unique in having slaves. Every place had slaves, so it's not a good answer. I didn't ask, were we perfect? I asked, are we essentially a good country? And remember, I just kept asking it and asking it. They can't come to say this. Because once you say that, you're a conservative. That's the truth. Once you say this has been the best country in the world, and that doesn't mean there haven't been any other good people. It doesn't mean all Americans are good. We've had Americans who lynched human beings because of their skin color. That's the scum of the earth. But that's not how you evaluate the sum total of a society. The sum total, even vis-a-vis Africans, is, as the late William Safire pointed out, and the New York Times, to its credit, pointed out, and this was about 10 years ago at least, maybe 15. Did you know that more black Africans have come to the United States voluntarily than came on slave ships? How many Americans know that? Doesn't that say something about the penitence that we have done? That more Africans want to live here than don't want to live here? Or than ever came as slaves? That this is regarded as a great place for a black human being to live? Because it is a great place for a black human being to live. And as soon as you say that, by golly, you're a conservative. That's the difference. They love it, but I don't know what it is they love. They don't believe it's a great place for a black person to live. Oh, it's getting better. But is it a great place for a black to live? Is it a great place for a Hispanic to live? Is it a great place for a Muslim to live? For a Jew to live? For a woman to live? It's the best. See this? Okay. For those watching on YouTube, and I'm dead serious, for those of you, I'm addressing those of you who may watch this on YouTube, would anyone who said this is the best country for any of those groups to live at an equally left-of-center convention as this is a right-of-center convention have received a standing ovation? It's a rhetorical question because the answer is not only no, but they would not be re-invited. And that is not meant as a joke. It is so contrary to everything taught left of center. That's the difference. The difference is as wide as America between left and right. I get a call every so often, I get letters, you know, Dennis, you know, you divide things between left and right because there's a division between left and right. The left-right division is greater except for the enormous, admittedly enormous, issue of slavery than anything that divided North and South. They divided on slavery, we divide on everything else. There is no meeting point between left and right. There isn't. That doesn't mean they're bad, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that, let's be clear, the battle in America is not political, it is values. What America do you believe in? What America do you wish to construct? What America do you wish to improve, or do you wish to transform a fundamentally flawed place? That's the issue. It seems to me elementary. It seems to me elementary. And so, yes, e pluribus unum, in God we trust, and liberty. And yes, the left is against all three, and I'll prove it. This is not an assertion. I wish it were not true. I get no joy. E pluribus unum, they can't stand the phrase, let alone the word melting pot, which is almost like, well, I would say like cursing. But, I mean, if you read much on the left, cursing is quite acceptable. Like, I did an entire piece. I spent hours and hours reading the 20th or 25th anniversary edition of Rolling Stone. Almost every person interviewed in it used the F word and the S word regularly. It's a little thing that's on the cultural left, and not everybody on the left does this. I, of course, not. Certainly not the members of my own family. But the cultural left does think that it's okay, that anybody who is uptight about public use of curse words is uptight. Anyway, e pluribus unum is a sort of curse word. From many, one. In fact, when Al Gore, the famous Al Gore malapropism, when he said, e pluribus unum, from one, many, and it was a very famous thing. Now, let me say something. For those of you who know me, I have made my own share of miserable, I'll give you one example, where I was absolutely stupid. I had a trucker from Arizona call my show. And I love to ask people about their own lives. Every Labor Day, that's all I do for 3 hours, because I broadcast on every national holiday. It's my commitment to national holidays. And I think they should be more than a day off, so I don't take the day off. And so on Labor Day, I ask callers to tell me for 3 hours what they do for a living, and it's one of the fun shows of the year. Anyway, this was not one of those days. It was a regular call, and the guy said, "Hey, Dennis, how you doing? I'm driving my truck here in Arizona." I said, "Really? No kidding, what are you hauling?" And he said, "Oh, 2 tons of celery." And I said, "Really? What do 2 tons of celery smell like?" And the guy was clearly torn. He respects me, and finally said, well, Dennis, like celery. So let me just say I've had my share of bad moments on radio. And that was one of them. Because as soon as he said it, I thought, yeah, Dennis, what do you think it will smell like? Right? Potatoes? I mean, it's celery. It just smells like a lot of celery. Be that as it may. So I don't pick, I never ever, seriously, I never pick on public figures who make public errors. The only reason I mention the Al Gore error, where he translated it wrong, and of course he knows what it really means, is that I do believe it reflected a truth on the left, that they do want to invert it from many one to from one many. That's the only reason I pick on it. I think it doesn't represent truth that I think 2,000 pounds of celery smells like carrots. It was just a stupid question. But it does reflect a truth on the left, and they call it multiculturalism. They want your identity to be either hyphenated or even primarily something else. And they start all these groups in high schools. It's so interesting to me. They start all these ethnic groups. And it's a horribly, they yell at us for being divisive. We want English as a national language just as a proclamation, and they say we're divisive. What is it? You're divisive. We want to unite everybody. We don't want a Hispanic club at high school, not because we're against Hispanics, but because we want every Hispanic with Anglos and Jews and Christians and Africans. That's why. It's all inverted. It's all upside down. It is so hard to unravel the mess. We're called divisive. They wish to redefine marriage, and we're called divisive. I mean, even if you believe in redefining marriage in a way never defined in human history, even if you believe in that, have the intellectual honesty to admit you're the divisive one. To believe that marriage should be between a man and a woman is not divisive. It may be wrong, but it sure as hell isn't divisive. You're the divisive one. But they don't see it because there's no self-reflection on the left. They're so certain of the purity of their motives, there's no need to self-reflect. Who's the divisive one? Multiculturalism instead of e pluribus unum. And instead of in God we trust, well, they want a radically secular society, just like your university. That's the model, where God is absent. This place was not found. Let me just say, it's a lie. And I never, well, never, not never, I am now. I rarely use the term. But it is a lie to say that America was founded to be secular. America was founded to be a religious society with a secular government. They wanted a God-based society. I was in Congress, I was present in the halls of Congress when President Obama gave one of his many talks. But this one was to a joint session of Congress, which is very rare, on behalf of his health care proposals. And I did not know this from that's exaggerated, from the dozens of times I had watched presidential addresses from Congress. But in fact, above the vice president of the United States and the Speaker of the House, you know they're seated always behind the president, they always have to smile and so on, but about 15 feet above them, chiseled in gigantic letters, in beautiful marble, are only these words, the only words on that entire wall of Congress: "In God we trust." But they never show it to you on TV, do they? It was news to me, and it is news to you, probably, unless you visited it. You will never see a long backup of the wide-angle lens. Isn't that odd? They always do it. Why do they never do it? I am certain one reason, consciously or not, is not to let you see the sign, "In God we trust." Because if it were up to the Democrats, it would be taken down, because it would be called a violation of the separation of church and state. I would love to do a poll among members of the Democratic Congress. Would you like, a quiet poll, would you like that sign taken down? there is no doubt in my mind that the vast majority would vote for it. They do everything they possible on the left to tear that sign down and to tear In God We Trust from our being the second part of our Trinity. I give you this example because it started in Davenport, Iowa, what we call the Heartland, right? The Civil Rights Commission persuaded the city manager or mayor, I don't recall who it was, to issue a letter that from now on they would not call Good Friday, but what was the term? A spring holiday. Spring holiday. Okay? Now, as a Jew who I don't celebrate Good Friday, I was as angry as an American could be. And I'm allowed to vent it because I'm not Christian. Because if a Christian vents it, well, it's because you're Christian, which is so disgusting. Because we never say to anybody, well, you're venting because you're not a Christian. Never. You have to take them seriously, but Christians don't have to be taken seriously. So here I am, a Jew, saying, I think that's despicable. The vast majority of my fellow Americans observe Good Friday, hence that is enough for me to keep Good Friday as the name of that day. End of issue. Just as I have fought for Merry Christmas and not Happy Holidays. Because as I have, I'll never forget, I had a left-wing professor, I know it's redundant, but I still had to say it. I had a left-wing professor of law from a school in Indiana. I had her on. She was leading the charge against having a Christmas tree in the library of this law college in Indiana. So I had her on, and she said, I'm so curious, because again, my nice mellifluous tones, I'm so curious. And they're always nice and mellifluous. What am I going to do, invite people on to attack them? I don't believe in that. But I asked, what's wrong with it? The vast majority of Americans celebrate Christmas. What's wrong with it? Well, she said, well, it doesn't make non-Christians feel included, and it makes them feel bad. I said, I'm a non-Christian. I feel great when I see a Christmas tree. I'll never forget this. I mean, I felt bad for her because she had no idea I'm Jewish. I mean, she had no idea I existed till she got on the line. Professors of law don't listen to talk radio. Too bad. I mean, it would be a great moment in American history when they did. But in any event, she didn't know what to say. Well, maybe you're different. I said, I'm not different. What is wrong? I said, what does this mean, not included? Because it's not my holiday? Let me ask you a question. If I invited you to my birthday party, would you feel unincluded because it's not your birthday? No, I'm serious. What is wrong with my logic? If it's not your holiday, then you're not included? Then don't never go to anybody's birthday party. It's this thinking. When you analyze leftist thinking, it isn't thought, and this is not meant as an insult. It is felt. The key to understanding the left is it is not thought. That statement that a non-Christian is not welcome is not thought, it's felt. There's no thinking behind it. It's an absurdity. It's all about feelings. What the 60s ushered in, I've called it the age of stupidity for many years, but I now have a more scientific term, and I mean it sincerely. It's the age of feelings. I'll give you one example. If you asked anyone in my parents' generation, would you save your pet that you love or a stranger first if both were drowning, they would have laughed at you at the absurdity of the question. Of course they would save the stranger because human beings are infinitely more valuable than dogs, cats, or whatever. Starting with the age of feelings, where morality emanates from feelings, not from a code like Scripture, you get an entirely different response. The vast majority of secular college, high school, and graduate students will not say the stranger. They will either not have an answer. It's a tough one. They don't know. I've done this. I've done this for 30 years. I've asked the question. Ask your kid. I hope you get the answer, the stranger. You are more likely to get, I don't know. That's a tough one. I try to save both, which is not an answer either. Or, well, the truth is, I don't know. I'd probably save, Humbert or whatever the dog's name is. Because, and I always ask why, and because I love my dog, I don't love the stranger. It's the age of feelings. Why would I save my dog second to you? Why would I save you if you were drowning and I didn't know you and I don't know you? Why would I save any stranger in the world? Now, let me answer, well, what if it's Osama bin Laden? They always think they get me with that toughie. So here is the answer. If Osama bin Laden is drowning, I help him drown. They ask it as if it's a tough question. It always cracks me up. He should drown slowly but effectively. That would be my answer. So if a leaf is drowning and Osama is drowning, I save the leaf. Okay? But if I said stranger, meaning I don't know it's Osama bin Laden, I only know it's a human. Why would I save a human before the dog that I love? And we have a basset hound whom we love. And the answer is that people are created in God's image, ergo infinitely more sacred in their value. You don't like the answer? Tough. That's the answer that does not come from my heart. It comes from my source of values, the Scripture, the Bible. That is my source. And I have proof. I have proof. Ask this question to kids at a Christian or religious Jewish school, and you will get overwhelmingly the stranger. Public school or private secular school, overwhelmingly not the stranger. And they love their dogs just as much. By the way, just to share with you the moments you have in public life, I asked a group of 8-year-olds this question once as a joke. Because after all, what am I going to trap 8-year-olds? I'm not a nut, and I'm certainly not a sadist, and I'm not a bully. But I was at a very big temple in Manhattan, and out of nowhere, I was the scholar in residence at the synagogue, and they said, "Dennis, say some words to our 8-year-olds." Okay, I'll say some words to your 8-year-olds, no problem. So I asked them the question because I figured it's never too young to at least teach them. I didn't want to get every kid voted for their pet. I said pet, not specific animal. One kid voted for the stranger. 8-year-old kid. And I said, son, whatever. Young man, would you stand up? He said, yeah. You would save your pet before, you would save a stranger before your pet? He said, yeah. I said, do you love your pet? He said, yeah. I said, may I just ask, what is your pet? He said, yeah, a fish. It actually happened. It actually happened. All right, I'm coming to an end, John. Please, I'm sorry. Are you angry at me? Prager booed twice at lecture. Liberty. So the war against for secular America and against God we trust. And the consequences are for another speech. The consequences of the death of God in our society are horrific. And finally, liberty. And the liberty battle can be very easily, there are many, many ramifications, but can be easily explained in one huge area. And that is another motto of mine, and I hope you'll get the bumper sticker. We're putting it out at Prager University, which is a very big project that Alan and I have started, my producer Alan and I. And it is where we give you 5 minutes. You give us 5 minutes, we give you a semester. And you can find my American Trinity talk at Prager University. Please, please go there and send these around. This is our hope to undo the damage, the intellectual and moral damage of the university. And we have a bumper sticker called the bigger the state, the smaller the citizen. I'd like you to remember that phrase because that explains our opposition to big government in one sentence. People become smaller as the state becomes bigger. That's true in Europe, it's true in Asia, it's true all over the earth. What the founders of this country want was a huge, gigantic citizen and a very small state. People do get smaller in every way. One obvious way is morally. That is why in Europe, the passion of the average European, and there are wonderful Europeans and there are miserable Americans, but on average, the passion of the European is how many days off will I have this year? How will I retire? At what age will I retire? How young can I retire? And that's not the preoccupation of Americans, not nearly as much as it is of Europeans. And in America, we believe in charity far more than Europeans do. We give far more personal charity per capita per income than Europeans do. Why give it if the state will take care of it? The American ideal, the first in history, I take care of my parents, I take care of my children, I take care of me, and I take care of my community. And the left-wing ideal, which emanates entirely from Europe, from the Kaiser and then on, is the state will take care of you, the state will take care of your parents, the state will take care of your children, the state will educate your children, the state will take care of your community. Well, if the state is going to take care of everybody, I don't need to take care of anybody, including me. And so where is the liberty? It's taken away gradually. I can't. Taxation is a moral issue, not an economic issue alone. Of course it's economic, but it's primarily moral. You know better what I should do with the money that I honorably earned? You don't think that I will be charitable? Only you who seem to know everything because you have a PhD from Harvard or Yale or UCLA or Colorado University? You think you know better? That's totalitarian. That's not the American liberty way. This is the huge battle that is here. That's why we are so angry right now. We have a right to be. The greatest experiment in human history, the United States of America, is being, yes, fundamentally transformed, and we don't want that to happen. So let me leave you. So then let me leave you with this realization. I have never said this, and people listening to my show can attest to this. I've never said this is the most important election, let alone for an off-year election. But this is the most important election perhaps since the Lincoln era. Not just of my life or my parents' life. I can't think of any other time that will determine the American future. If the Democrats are not out of the congressional majority, then America will be radically transformed. And it breaks my heart because goodness is much rarer than evil in human history. And this has been truly what Lincoln called it, the last best hope for mankind. Thank you so, so very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
He did it again. Dennis Prager has done it again. Another Denver speech, another YouTube moment. There will soon be a dedicated Dennis channel on YouTube. Wait for it, it's coming. Long day. I know there are 3 terrific questions to cap off our evening with Dennis Prager. Let's start with you.
I'll repeat it, by the way. If I can hear it, I'll repeat it. Who's asking? Oh, you're getting a microphone? Is that it? Yes. Good. Okay. By the way, before you get it then, let me make just a quick introduction. The producer of my show, without which it wouldn't be the show it is Alan Estrin, and he is here. Alan, please. And I wouldn't be what I am without my wife, who is also here, Sue. Okay, my two spouses.
Is Sue finished improving you?
Sue, are you finished improving me? That's one of John's questions. It's never finished. It's never finished. Any married man knows that. It is never. It's what keeps the wife going. There's a vision. What is it, Alan? Don't we have on the male-female hour? But I know the man he could be. Yes.
Mr. Prager, first of all, thank you for your eloquent information to us tonight. My name is William Owens, and my question to you today is this. Oddly enough, I have the grace of God to go into a variety of different communities. I'm a speaker on the Tea Party Express tour, as well as I do work within urban America. It's been a given fact that most of Black Americans acquire much of their influence from clergy, from the church. Historically, the church is where most issues are discussed within Black America. It's also a known fact that Obama's been quoted in saying that Black clergy is more homophobic when it comes to same-sex marriages. It's also my opinion that many have compromised their principles and their Judeo faith in standing to continue to side with such a president. If you had an opportunity to address a body of Black clergy, I would really like to know what you would say to them. This is not meant to be a little question.
Oh, no, I love the question, and I never patronize a questioner.
Thank you very much, sir.
No, thank you. I would pay to address Black clergy. I'm not kidding you. I rather address those I differ with, to be perfectly honest. They don't invite people they differ with. We on talk radio have folks on the left regularly. They never have folks from the other side. Never. And if they do, it is so exceedingly rare as to compromise the word never. Be that as it may, I would be honored and love to address Black clergy. And among the things, just off the top of my head, because I hadn't thought this particular issue through, but I will tell you. First of all, I would tell them that my belief is that evil emanates more than anything else from a perceived sense of victimhood. And to the extent that they, in some way, well-intentioned as they may be, increase the sense of victimhood among Black Americans, they are increasing the likelihood of evil to take place, and that is the last thing any Jew or Christian wants ever to do. I don't believe that they are doing it consciously. I don't believe that they want to do it. But victimhood, let me just tell you, it was Roy Baumeister, a criminologist, sociologist. He's now a professor in Florida. He was many years at Case Western Reserve. I have been, unlike the girl's introduction to me at Colorado University, I have been preoccupied with evil my whole life. And I am fascinated by the question of why people do it. He has interviewed mass murderers, other murderers, mass serial rapists, the worst of the worst. Every one of them thinks of himself as a victim. That is exactly how people commit the worst atrocities. The Germans had to lay the foundations. We are victims of the Versailles Treaty and of France and England and Jews. And that's how they opened up Auschwitz, because we are victims. The increase of the victim mentality in the United States, which is, if I had to charge the left with one unforgivable sin, they have many forgivable sins, but they have one unforgivable, is creating a sense of victimhood among non-victims, Hispanics, women, and Blacks in particular. I would say one other thing to nearly all the liberals that I know. Somebody asked me the other day, I don't remember where, but after a speech, And I was talking about the fact that the left only can redistribute wealth, it never creates wealth. The left has never created wealth. Its sole concern is redistributing it. So a person said, well, how do you explain all these billionaire leftists on Wall Street and elsewhere? And I said, what they should do is, and this is what I tell a lot of liberals, is you should preach what you practice. Liberals don't do that. They live conservative lives and they preach radical lives. Okay.
Mr. Prager, first of all, I'm not sure everybody here knows how close we came to not having you here for dinner tonight because of your bout with what I understand was food poisoning, but thank you for being here.
Oh, well, all right, I'll tell you about that since you finished eating. Go ahead.
Well, we're glad, we're very happy you're here. You made a point fairly early on when you got into your talk about our not being able to fight the other side basically on the same terms that they fight us. And while my experience tends to cause me to agree with that, I wondered if you might just elaborate. Why is it that there is this double standard? Why does the other side get away with tactics in the fight that we will lose, as you said, inevitably if we use basically give as good as we get?
The reason that they get away with it is that they're not called on it by the media. That's the reason. People understand the world through media. The medium is the message. Marshall McLuhan was a prophet, and that's exactly correct. One major difference between the United States and the rest of the world, not to mention Europe, is that we have a vigorous conservative radio, conservative television station, or at least not liberal one, and conservative editorial page at the Wall Street Journal. That gives you an idea of the importance, and this is not to inflate the importance of those of us in talk radio, but I don't want to tell you otherwise just to sound humble. It's unbelievably important. That's why they want us to shut down. But they get away with it because nobody calls them on it. We are called on anything. If the president makes a guffaw, no one reports it. If President Bush made a guffaw, oh, he's a moron. President Bush was not only not a moron, he was a very, very bright, one of the brightest presidents we had, plus one of the best read presidents that we ever had. I would be happy to compare the number of serious books read by this president and the previous president in any given year of his administration. But the media declared him stupid, so he's stupid. And that ends the issue. And that's what your kids will learn at any university. President Bush was stupid. And that's it. But Vice President Biden is a genius. And I don't want to mock President Biden. He's obviously a nice guy and so on, but he's not brilliant. And that's okay. Most people are not brilliant. He's fine. You don't have to be brilliant to be a vice president or president, to be honest. Jimmy Carter was apparently very bright and was among the worst presidents we ever had. I'm overwhelmingly convinced that brains are wildly, wildly exaggerated in their significance. Common sense is infinitely more important than a great brain. Okay.
Dennis, I'll take the prerogative of the final question. A point that you make that I love. Why is it that you, as a religious Jew and a scholar of the Torah, tell us that it is both a true thing and a good thing to say America is a Christian nation?
Well, actually, to be honest, I say it's a Judeo-Christian nation, and let me explain why I do that. I'll answer your question and why my modification. I'll start with my modification. The Christians who founded this country were different from the Christians in Europe as a general rule. And the difference was how Judeo-centered they were. This is a huge difference, so much so that the Liberty Bell has a verse from the Torah. Most Jews don't know this, most Christians don't know this. They could have picked a verse from the New Testament about liberty. They decided to pick one from the book of Leviticus. Ukaratem dror b'chol haaretz b'chol yoshveha. And you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. And that was deliberate. And Thomas Jefferson's a so-called deist. You know what he and Benjamin Franklin, the other so-called deists, submitted? You could check this tonight on the internet. The Jefferson-Franklin submission to be the seal of the United States was the Jews leaving Egypt. and the pillar of fire by night and the cloud during the day. It's too bad. It is a tragedy in American history that that was not adopted as the seal, because it would have made it so clear for every generation what it is this country was founded to be. This is the Judeo-Christian country in human history. So yes, that is what I call it. That it is demographically and in so many other ways Christian is not debatable. But if you want to win the debate and be truthful, call it Judeo-Christian. Not because I told you, I don't want Hanukkah as a national holiday. Believe me, it's very good to have Christmas. I'm thrilled with it. Christmas is a treasured time in American life. You know when I learned this? And this is a yeshiva boy. If you don't know what yeshiva is, it is a deeply orthodox religious education. Many of the students go on to be rabbis. And I had that immersion. I studied the scripture in Hebrew. I know it better in Hebrew than I know it in English. That's why I have to do it in Hebrew, and then I translate for you to this day. But I understood. I understood from there, and I understood when I got out of yeshiva, I understood. This is my point. And you know when at 20, I visited Morocco while I was studying in England my junior year in college. It was Christmas time. It's very interesting. I'm putting it in another book I'm writing about. I'm calling it let's see, A Man, an American, a Jew, my autobiography, because I'm three different things that all had their own battles for my identity. And I became an American Judeo-Christian emphasizer and Christian lover. Yes, I will use the term. In Christmas of 1969, at the age of 21, finally got the age right, in Morocco, and I realized I'm a little depressed. And why am I depressed? There's no Christmas. And I thought, yeshiva boy Dennis, Shmuel Prager, as my Hebrew name is, Shmuel Nehemiah Prager misses Christmas? And I actually thought there's something wrong with me. If my rabbis at yeshiva knew this, they'd die. They would have slaughtered me in a kosher way. I don't know what they would have done. But I realized, oh my God, I miss it. I miss it. The country is a little nicer then. It is beautiful. Do you know that I have defended Santa Claus? This notion that you should tell your 5-year-old, oh, it's really not true. These people, I'm sorry, I'm sure there are people here who believe that. But let me just answer that in 1 second. I'm sorry. Let me just answer that in 1 second. I get the argument, well, when they find out that Santa Claus isn't real, then they won't believe God is real. Okay, I have asked this question to millions of listeners over 10 years. No one who became an atheist did so because of Santa Claus. It's absurd. It's absurd. How many things can your kid believe in? Look, Tooth Fairy, even I knew was nonsense. I kept upping the amount, and my parents gave in. I didn't think there was a Tooth Fairy that showed up. I lost a tooth. I got a quarter, which in those days meant something. You know, you could actually bite into it, or not bite into it, I should say. Be that as it may, I have come to love that period of time. I love that there are holy days in the American calendar. Of course I do. And I wouldn't ask that this country give up Christmas any more than I would ask Israel to give up Hanukkah. See, I always ask Jews who were liberal, and that's another lecture for another time, but I've written a lot on it. I always ask Jews who think, oh, it's got to be everything secularized, everything secularized. I said, I'm curious. In Israel, which is also, you know, it's a country where a quarter of the population is Muslim, and there are, you know, fairly large little conclaves of Christians. I'm curious, what would you say in Israel on Rosh Hashanah? Would you say Happy Holiday or Shana Tova, Happy New Year? Well, why would you say Happy New Year? It's not their New Year. It's not the Christians' New Year. It's not the Muslims' New Year. So Israel is wrong. Or you as a Jew who said it to Shana Tova, you would be wrong, wouldn't you? It's not, you're imposing your holiday, aren't you? And yet, if a non-Jew in Israel got up and said, we should not say Shana Tova because we're not included, I would have the same exact reaction to the non-included argument about Christmas. So yes, it is demographically and ideologically in many ways a Christian country, but it is values-wise a Judeo-Christian country. And that is the power that we will have as Jews and Christians, not to transform it, but to keep it the greatest country. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you.